Gogo, ngicela ukuthesta.
Shesha lapho.
Just be cool, okay?
Johnny Pie, bring the head up here in the 3 ovens, please, man. Danke, Beleid, danke. Hey, wat maak jy? Drinks me voor me. Ah, but I'm joking. You're old enough, but you can have a sip, another one. Well, thank you. Ah, it's like father, like son.
Quite incredible, isn't it? All of us look at that and think, wow, really? Does that happen? You know it happens. You've seen it happen in front of your own eyes. Well, I certainly have. You know, the legal age for a person to consume alcohol in South Africa is 18 years old. But most of us are aware that many young people, let's actually change that word to young children, begin drinking at a much younger age. This is often due to peer pressure in schools or the neighbourhood. Now, my next two guests want to inform young people about the dangers of underage drinking because it may lead to alcohol dependence. Joining us in studio is the CEO of aware.org, Ingrid Louw, as well as well-known South African artist Kabelo Mabalane, to talk to us about the My First Drink Story campaign. Good to see both of you.
How's it, Lee?
Yeah, good to see you. I mean, you know, I watched this advert and it's the first time I've seen it. I have not seen it being played yet. So you kind of think about the fact that we do, like, have a little taste. Taste it, my son, my boy. Go and pour me a drink, or my daughter, or whatever. And you don't realize the dangers that come with that. Ingrid, this angle that you're taking, talk to us the idea about it.
Sure. So we've been rolling out targeted program interventions for underage drinking in the schools. And part of that has been evaluating the program where we work with teachers. We develop content for the curriculum, for the LO curriculum, and we work with teachers to empower them to actually engage with the kids on this issue. What the research is telling us is the kids say they understand that they shouldn't be doing it. But the problem is that when they go home, they're immersed in alcohol. Whether it's their parents consuming the alcohol, whether it's in a family social gathering, or whether they've just been sent to the local tavern to go and buy beer or top up for parents or older siblings. So we said, well, more than just doing the program, what is it that we can do more and what we can do above that? And we really want to do more as the alcohol industry because we don't believe it's okay. Yeah. The legal drinking age is 18, and anything below that, you should not be consuming alcohol. And so we did some research, which actually we cross-checked against the research we were doing through the programs. And this was local and global research. And it told us exactly the same thing, that it's actually parents, caregivers, older siblings, older relatives, in that child's world that is enabling this practice.
Whether they're aware of it or not, I suppose that's a question we've got to look at as well. I mean, as a parent, innocent parent, kind of saying, no, have a sip, taste it, it's okay. You know, is it okay? Should we be doing that? Or is that something you say, absolutely not. Don't even go near that stuff. It is not legal and there are repercussions for taking a sip.
So you've touched a good point there, Leanne. It's actually illegal.
Yeah.
Because the law says if you're 18 and over, you're an adult and you can consume alcohol. If you're under the age of 18, you're a minor. And that parent, that caregiver is responsible for you. So we need to be a little bit more focused in terms of what is happening in our children's spaces. Yeah. We shouldn't be allowing it, whether it's child sipping or just taste it's cider, doesn't it taste like this, it's not so bad, or you're okay, you're old enough, you're with us. Because here's another discussion that's happening, is that people are asking, we know that it's illegal for kids to drink under the age of 18, but is it okay if they're doing it with their parents?
Yeah.
It's not okay. And we're enabling a culture of underage drinking.
Fascinating discussion, because these are things that hit me in my life at this moment, where you have these conversations with parents and saying, no, I mean, he's 15 years old, he can have a drink with his father, it's not a problem. Kabelo, let's talk about you. I mean, you've come from 17 years, I believe, yesterday, that you have now been sober from all alcohol, all drug use, and that is incredible. I mean, it really, really is incredible. But before we talk about you as a father now, because that changes your whole perspective on things, doesn't it? You know, for you, the question I suppose we're asking you, when was your first drink story?
You know, my first drink story was after matric exams. I actually I'm grateful for the kind of school that I went to because it was quite strict and quite regimented. But after matric, we were kind of all letting our hair down, so to speak. The pressures and everything that went with writing matric exams, and just surrounded by a group of friends who were doing it. And the next thing I was consuming alcohol. Yeah. But my kind of unhealthy relationship with alcohol began way before that. And this is exactly what this campaign is about: how caregivers are modeling the use of alcohol, how they're interacting with alcohol around minors. I've shared in my book and many times that my dad struggled with alcohol, and I saw what alcohol did. My grandmother, who I love to bits. I just remember as a young boy, kind of holding her hand and going with her to a friend's house, to consume alcohol. That kind of that line or that portal was opened into the world of drinking. And that's exactly what this campaign is about, which is why I got involved. It's not sitting there waving kind of and pontificating and saying, don't drink, you bad. It's basically saying, it's holding a mirror up to us as a country and saying, well, this is how we behave around alcohol, and especially around minors, and just to kind of think twice when you've got people over, friends over. We have a big celebratory culture in our country, and that's okay. But what we're basically saying is, how are we interacting with alcohol around minors? What kind of a relationship are we modeling, around alcohol, especially around minors? Because I'm at the opposite end of the scale. I became an alcoholic. And don't for one second think that even in that safe space where you're drinking, that you're not a catalyst to, making a child end up to where I ended up.
Yeah, no, it is so real. And you've got a child who's got these innocent eyes that are looking at you. They're looking up to you. They're learning lessons and behavioral patterns from you. And when I think to my relationship with alcohol was, from when I was a baby. And that's the reality, is that I remember that my grandparents, you talk about your grandparents, they would take whiskey and rub it on my gums. And it would be, oh no, shame, man, it'll numb the pain, the poor little thing, it'll be okay. So from when I was like maybe, I don't even know, a couple of months old, I was already having sort of alcohol put on my gums and dip the dummy in the whiskey. And, these are the kind of things that you think are all innocent, but at the end of the day, you don't really ask your kid to light you a joint, do you? And say, no, just light me a joint and bring it, and, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And I'm not sure we understand that. So, Ingrid, perhaps you want to talk a little bit more. This is not about pointing fingers at maybe poorer, underprivileged children and people. This is everyone.
So, Leanne, we've been socialized, as Kabelo says, we've been socialized around alcohol, whether it's a first birthday party, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a funeral. It's so much a part of our lives. We're not saying that that's a problem, but we're saying as a parent, as a caregiver, as an older person in their child's life, they don't have the freedom of choice. You make the choices for them. And we need South Africans to realize that this is not okay. And that is why we decided to kick off with, and we're calling this an awareness campaign, because we want to put it onto the national agenda of the country. We want South Africans talking about it. We want South Africans, as Kabelo says, to hold up the mirror and challenge your inherent belief system, challenge your customs, challenge your behavior. Is this okay? And if you get that, which I get every time I sit there, if you get that, then something's not right. Then you're enabling a culture of underage drinking. And, statistics are telling us that a child by 15, if you've had your first drink, 50% of those are very often going to become alcohol dependent.
Wow.
So there's a lot of stats out there that inform this campaign, and we really are inviting South Africans to have a conversation with us, because we believe that if we do start this conversation, we begin to challenge our inherent belief system, and that's when we make the right decisions.
Yeah, Kabelo, I spoke to you a little bit earlier saying you're a father now, you're a parent, and you've come such a far way, but obviously your relationship with everything everything changes the minute you see that you have a little one that you need to protect. So, I mean, you know, looking at her and your behavior around her, and talk to us about that and the responsibility as a parent.
So, I mean, my kind of job is twofold. I still need to wait for my kids to get to that age where I can talk to them about my past life and my struggles with, you know, alcohol and drugs, you know, because and then it starts to frame kind of this conversation that I need to have with them around alcohol. I think what this campaign is also encouraging is to have the conversation, because I think when we're in that kind of celebration mode, I've heard the term used called lazy parenting, and it kind of kicks in, and you actually don't want to get involved in the explanation and doing the work, you know, talking to the child, and then you just kind of say, you can have the drink, where we should actually be saying it's an absolute no-no. And you need to explain why. I think maybe I'm at an advantage because I've had the struggles, and I'll have kind of, you know, stories to tell about why you shouldn't. I mean, Ingrid talks about 50% of those children that start end up being alcoholics. And then there's a scary stat that I'm all too familiar with is, you know, whether you're a drug addict or an alcoholic, there's a 2% recovery rate.
Sure.
So, you know, the numbers are not kind of on, you know, on our side.
They're not on our side. They're really not. And it's normalized. Drinking, excessive drinking is normalized. In fact, one of the difficult things that I still don't understand is, you know, I gave up drinking for a while, and it was purely for a weight loss thing. I'll leave that there. And I remember going to so many functions, and people would offer me a drink and say, no, I'm not drinking. And it'd be like the weirdest thing they've ever heard. It's like, seriously, but why? What's wrong? Are you okay? Are you? I'm like, no, I just don't want to drink. And they're like, no, I don't understand. It's like I was doing something wrong. And I actually dreaded going out because I thought, like, you know, I'm the weird one not drinking. And this is real. This is real. So talk to us a little bit more about this campaign. How do we get involved? How does the normal South African watching this? Obviously, we know what to do, but how can we get involved and further do what we need to do?
So, Leanne, we kicked off with the TV ad because we want to create this awareness. We want to put it on the agenda. We want people talking. And it's going to be on all the main media platforms. So it'll be in radio, out of home. We're going to be big in social media. But with this particular ad in particular, because we want to get the conversation going, we've hashtagged it My First Drink Story. And we're inviting South Africans to share their first drink story. You can do it through your name, or you can do it anonymously. And then we've created a microsite where people can go and they can put their stories up there. And we will share that with South Africans and hopefully trigger more conversation and more conversation. What we're also doing with this campaign, which we're very excited about, is we're going to curate all those stories, and we're going to have live Twitter walls around the city. So as you're driving, you're going to see these tweets coming up where people are actually talking about my first drink story. And we're hoping that when we bring all of that together at the end of the day, we've created some consciousness around this. And hopefully as South Africans, we're going to start changing the way we're doing things.
Ingrid, how bad is the situation in South Africa with regard to underage drinking?
Leanne, it's very bad. You know, the pilot programs that we've been running, I mean, there's real data that's coming out of that. The kids are talking to us and they're telling us that, you know, they're drinking for various reasons. We know that because of the situation that our country is, we have broken homes, there's a lack of good role models, there's unemployment, there's poverty, there's inequality, there's all of these things that these kids have to deal with. And they're telling us they're drinking because they're stressed, they're drinking because they're depressed. A lot of it is peer pressure, a lot of it is self-esteem issues. So in that mix, where are the parents? Where are the adults? Should we not be taking control of the situation? Should we not, as Kabelo says, be having the conversation? As hard as it is, be having that conversation with our kids and holding their hand through this. I mean, we're coming up to finals, and we come up to the end of the year, matrics are writing, and then we know what happens after that. And then it's the rages all around the country. Who's talking to these kids about making the right choices? So, you know, our hope is that at some point in the future, when our kids and our kids' kids ask, what did you do at the time where the scourge was building and was gaining momentum? What did you do as an adult in that space? That we are able to say, we saw there was a trend, an upward trend. We did whatever we could to disrupt this trend. And we want all South Africans to be responsible for the better.
Fantastic. Ingrid, thank you. This is a great campaign. I really, really think it's wonderful and powerful. And it's something that I think we all need to be very conscious about, because it's making me think about incidences that I'd forgotten ages ago. I mean, you don't realize that as a kid, these things stay with you forever.
Yeah.
And you'll remember it. So, I mean, Kabelo, closing remarks from you? I've just got maybe a
Yeah, I
minute
mean,
or so.
you ask what can we do, and and it's great to interact with the campaign as she's kind of laid it out for us. But I think this, like a very few campaigns, empowers you in your own space, because it's about your own spaces. What are you doing in your own space? We're speaking to Bo Bravosi at the tavern, where Spicho comes to buy a bottle, and you sell it to him, but
He's
that him or
underage.
her is underage.
Yeah.
It's about those guys asking the questions, bringing back that, that community that I grew up with, even in Soweto, where you just didn't walk into, a tavern to buy. You are asked all sorts of questions. Where did you get the money? Who are you buying it from? Just to bring back that culture.
Absolutely. It's great. Thank you. Thank you for coming in and
Thanks, Lee.
talking to us. I hope we've opened some eyes here this morning during this interview and made you think maybe sipping the foam off the top of your beer for your kid is not such a good idea, and it really isn't.
Yep.
The CEO of Aware.org, Ingrid Louw, and musician, artist, and everything, I think, everything. Kabelo Mabalane, talking about this new campaign, My First Drink Story, aiming to educate the young people and their parents and adults about the dangers of underage drinking.